Let me tell you how a single glass of champagne nearly erased me, and how I turned that sip into the biggest power shift my toxic family never saw coming. The ballroom was everything you'd expect from my brother Tyler's 5th anniversary party. Pretentious, gold-drenched, and smothered in fake smiles. Crystal chandeliers sparkled over tables draped in ivory linen. A string quartet played something expensive-sounding. Everyone was dressed to the nines, designer gowns, polished cufflinks, rehearsed compliments. But underneath the surface, it felt like walking into a pressure cooker. I stood near the back, wedged between two oversized floral arrangements, wearing a beige dress I didn't pick. Sharon, my stepmother, had it sent to my apartment a week before. "It'll suit you," she'd written on the note underlined twice. What she meant was blend in. Stay silent. The dress was tight at the ribs, stiff at the neckline, and whispered everything she wanted from me disappear. People clinked glasses. Laughs echoed too loud to be real. My father schmoozed with the mayor near the head table while Sharon worked the room like she was on a charity auction stage, air-kissing, fake-laughing, beaming at Tyler and his picture-perfect wife, Madison. And me, I was a blurry shadow in their filtered family portrait. I held a champagne flute in my hand, though I hadn't taken more than a few sips. Something felt off. Not the room, not the people. Me. At first I thought maybe I hadn't eaten enough, but it wasn't hunger. My limbs felt wrong, like someone had unplugged me from the wall. My chest buzzed. My balance tilted just enough to make me grip the edge of a table. My head didn't hurt, it floated. I set the glass down. Something in my gut screamed, "Move." I slipped out toward the hallway, whispering a made-up excuse to no one in particular. I needed air or clarity, or maybe to scream into the mirror until I remembered who I was. I didn't make it far before she stopped me, a woman in her 30s, auburn hair pulled back into a tight bun, sharp eyes, crisp posture. She could have been anyone event staff, PR, a guest, but she wasn't smiling. She stepped into my path like a wall in heels. "Are you Avery?" she asked quietly. I blinked. "Yeah. Why?" She leaned in close, her voice low and calm, so calm it made me freeze. "Your stepmother just dropped something into your drink." I didn't understand, not at first, what I whispered. She reached into her small clutch and pulled out a tiny object wrapped in tissue. "I saw her drop this in your glass. Stir it once. Dissolved right in. Looked like nothing happened, but I know what I saw." She showed me a small vial. Empty. Glossy inside. She added, "I do private security for high-profile events. I wasn't hired tonight, just visiting a friend. But this..." She nodded at the tissue. "This wasn't an accident. Whatever it was, you shouldn't drink it." My heart thudded like a drumline. My mouth went dry, my head floated, but not from alcohol. I already took a few sips," I muttered, "and I feel off, dizzy." "That's enough," she said. "Listen, if you can swap glasses, do it. Make it look accidental. But whatever you do, don't drink anymore." She slipped a card into my palm. Elise Duran, private security consultant. I still have it tucked inside my wallet like a relic of the moment everything changed. I nodded, my entire body vibrating with alarm. Every instinct in me screamed run, but I didn't. I walked calmly back into that golden ballroom. The world kept spinning like nothing had happened. Sharon stood near the event photographer, laughing too loud, tilting her head back in practiced charm. Her glass of champagne sat untouched on the table. It was nearly identical to mine. I took a breath, reached for it, swapped them, clean, smooth. Nobody noticed, not even Sharon. I sat down and waited. 20 minutes later, my father stood up for his signature toast to love, loyalty, and legacy. The room hushed. People raised their glasses. Sharon smiled right at me and took a slow sip from the flute I'd placed in front of her. Our eyes locked. I didn't blink. She tilted her head, her smile twitching. Then the glass slipped from her fingers. The shatter echoed louder than the string quartet's final note. Sharon stumbled once, twice, then crumpled to the floor like a puppet with cut strings. A collective gasp. Silverware clattered. Madison screamed. Tyler lunged toward her. Waiters dropped trays. My father shouted something, but I couldn't hear him over the roar of chaos. And me, I sat still, heart pounding, hands steady, because I knew that glass was meant for me. The ambulance lights washed the Clark estate in harsh red and blue painting shadows across the marble pillars and meticulously trimmed hedges. It looked less like a family home and more like a crime scene. Sharon was unconscious when they wheeled her out. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Foam traced her lips. Someone whispered stroke, someone else said panic attack, but deep down, I knew, and so did she. The irony, I wasn't scared anymore. Not even a little. The fear had evaporated the moment I saw her drink. What replaced it wasn't joy either. It was something colder, sharper, clarity. Sharon had tried to erase me. I had proof. I had a witness, and I had watched her sip the very poison she prepared for me. Everyone else was chaos incarnate. Madison sobbed like a porcelain doll with a crack in her perfect face. Tyler barked at the staff, demanding answers as if a collapsed stepmother was just a scheduling inconvenience. My father stood frozen, gripping his whiskey glass like it was the only real thing left in the world. Within the hour, the police arrived, calm, polite, annoyingly methodical. Blue uniforms against white tuxedos. A polite woman officer asked for my name. "Miss Clark, were you seated near the champagne?" "Yes," I said. We all were. "Did you notice anything unusual about Sharon's drink?" I paused. Not until she fell. It wasn't a lie. Not technically. What they didn't know yet was that Sharon didn't just pass out. She didn't trip. She didn't get too tipsy. Something had been put into that glass, and the only reason I was still standing was Elise. By morning, I hadn't slept a minute. I curled on the couch in my tiny midtown apartment, knees tucked under me, clutching a throw pillow like it could shield me from the truth. On the coffee table sat Elise's card, mocking me in its quiet strength. Private security consultant. That night looped in my mind her warning, the swap, the fall, the gasps. And then my phone buzzed. "Jenny, my cousin girl, you are trending." I blinked, opened the thread, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, even Reddit, hashtags, endless hashtags. Hans Clarkap's Ivory, disaster, what was in the glass. The video, oh God, the video was already viral. Someone at the party had been recording Sharon's dramatic laugh during the toast. It captured the exact moment she raised her glass, smiled coldly at me, and collapsed. And there I was, just behind her, sitting still, not gasping, not rushing forward, just watching. The comments. Why does she look so calm? That look between them, chilling. This is like Knives Out, but real. They didn't know me, but they were already building a story in their heads. And I knew what role they'd cast me in: the villain, the bitter stepdaughter, the ungrateful black sheep with murder in her heart. People love a villain when they don't know the truth. The police called that afternoon. Not just a check-in, a request. "We'd like to speak with you again, Miss Clark," said a detective. Her voice was smooth, professional, but I could hear at the edge of suspicion. Of course, I said, calm, no stutter, no fear. That silence on her end, that was surprise. She expected hesitation. But I wasn't afraid of the truth. Not anymore. The station walls were beige, the kind of beige that eats hope. I sat across from Detective Marissa Keene, her perfectly laced fingers resting on a slim manila folder between us. She didn't open it right away, just stared. "We have the toxicology report," she finally said. I nodded. "Okay." "There was scopolamine in the glass," she said. "Not a lethal dose, but enough to disorient, enough to cause fainting memory loss, even hallucinations, depending on the person's reaction." I didn't flinch. "I believe it." She raised an eyebrow. "You believe it?" "Yes." Because I was supposed to drink that glass. Detective Keene leaned forward. "Explain." So I did. I told her everything about Elise, about the hallway warning, about the card in my wallet, and the swap I'd made. Her expression didn't change, not at first, but I saw the flicker when I told her the most important part. "Why would your stepmother do this?" she asked. I looked her dead in the eye. "Because she found out." "I know the truth." She tilted her head. "What truth? She has no legal right to a dime of my mother's estate, and I have the document to prove it." That stopped her cold. 2 months before the party, I received an envelope that would change everything. It came without warning, no return address, no note. Just my name typed neatly in the center, postmarked from Savannah, Georgia. Inside, folded carefully and sealed in protective plastic, was a letter from my late mother's estate attorney, a man I barely remembered meeting at her funeral. Attached to the letter was a copy of her original prenuptial agreement with my father. At first glance, it looked like any legal document, clauses, countersigns, stiff language. But near the bottom, a paragraph was underlined in blue ink. "I'll never forget the words, 'In the event that Mr. Clark remarries after my passing, his new spouse shall have no legal entitlement to assets, trust funds, or properties generated by my pre-existing estate, or its growth, unless specifically named in a secondary will. This clause is binding.'" There it was. Proof that Sharon had no claim to any of it. Not the garden she'd gutted, not the investments she'd moved around like chess pieces, not the house she'd turned into her stage. Nothing. If this clause held up in court, Sharon's financial empire would collapse overnight. But I had made one mistake, a single misstep. I mentioned it on a phone call. I thought I was alone in my apartment, doors shut, volume low. I was speaking with Jenny, my cousin, the only family member who still called to check on me. I said something like, "I've finally got leverage now. She won't see it coming." Somehow, someone heard or told her. Because everything shifted after that call. Sharon, who had excluded me from years of holidays and family dinners, suddenly became warm, smiling, cordial. She invited me to the anniversary party. She sent the dress. She even complimented me in front of guests. And I, idiot that I was, thought maybe things were turning a corner. But it wasn't kindness. It was bait. That night, when I stood across from Detective Keene, her fingers now drumming on the table, I told her everything. Her expression didn't change, but I knew she was listening harder now. "We'll need to see that document," she said, "and we'll need to verify your witness." "You'll have both," I said. No hesitation. When I left the station, the world felt different, tilted, warmer even. Not because I was safe, but because I finally understood the game being played. This wasn't about a party or a petty feud. This was about legacy, money, power, and Sharon. She saw me as an obstacle one she'd rather quietly remove than confront head on. I hadn't made it more than 3 blocks before my phone rang. Tyler. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Curiosity, maybe. Or a deep-rooted part of me that still hoped my brother might not be the monster Sharon raised him to be. "Avery," he snapped the moment I picked up. "What the hell is going on?" I kept my voice calm. "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. The police came to the house. They asked about you. About what you knew. Did you say something?" I kept walking, watching the cracks in the sidewalk. I told them the truth. There was a pause, one of those thick silences that stretches your nerves, then lower. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "She tried to drug me, Tyler. You don't know that. I do. Someone saw it. Her name's Elise. She's a security professional. She saw Sharon drop something in my drink." He exhaled sharply, but he didn't deny it, and that told me everything. "I'm not going to be quiet anymore," I said. "You all spent years acting like I didn't exist. And now that I have something Mom meant for me to have, she tries to erase me. Don't push this," he growled. "You'll regret it." I hung up, and I didn't flinch. The next morning, I walked into the lawyer's office in Midtown carrying that prenup copy in a sealed manila envelope. The room smelled like lemon oil and old legal paper. The firm's managing attorney, Mr. Damaris, reviewed the document in silence. 5 minutes passed. Then he looked up at me. "This changes everything." I nodded. "Yeah, I know." "If this goes to court," he continued, "Sharon loses everything tied to your mother's estate. The house, the cars, the accounts, even parts of her business. She has no standing. She knows, I said. That's why she tried to get rid of me before it came out. He sat back in his chair, stunned. We'll need to move quickly. I signed the consent forms. I gave them everything. I was done letting other people decide what I was worth. 3 days later, Sharon was released from the hospital. She didn't call, didn't text, but her lawyer sent a notice to my apartment, accusing me of malicious defamation and deliberate endangerment. I read the letter, and then I smiled. She was scared. Good. The next family gathering wasn't supposed to be dramatic, but I showed up anyway. At the Clark estate, the air always felt a little too clean, like everything had been scrubbed of feeling. The hedges were clipped within an inch of their lives, the foyer marble polished to a shine so bright you could see your own disappointment in it. I walked in wearing beige. Not the same dress Sharon had forced on me weeks before this one I had chosen. Sleek, fitted, confident. I wore it like armor, not apology, and this time I wasn't there to blend in. I was there to reclaim space. Tyler's eyes widened when he saw me. My father just frowned like I was a stain on his white carpet. And Sharon. She walked in 10 minutes late. She looked wrong. Paler. Her makeup couldn't quite hide how tightly her lips pressed together or the slight tremble in her hands as she clutched her purse. Her spine was too straight, like a mask she had to hold upright. She spotted me. Our eyes locked. I smiled softly. "Hello, Sharon." She didn't answer. She sat across from me, knees tight, gaze flicking away. I leaned forward slightly. "How's your memory doing these days?" Her voice was barely audible, still a little foggy. My father stood. Avery. Not now. But I didn't stop, because he had never stopped her. "My memory's crystal clear," I said. "So is the security footage. So is the clause in Mom's prenup." Tyler slammed his glass down so hard a few guests jumped. "You're going to destroy this family." I turned to him. Calm. Cold. "No. I'm going to expose the part that's already rotting." Nobody spoke after that. I stayed only another 15 minutes, just long enough to see Sharon's hand start to shake when she reached for a fork, just long enough to remind them all I was no longer the shadow at the table. 2 days later, Sharon fired back. She gave an exclusive interview to a local lifestyle blog, the kind that usually covered charity galas, horse shows, and holiday brunches for Atlanta's elite. The headline, "Sharon Clark Speaks Out, I Was Targeted by My Husband's Daughter." In the interview, she painted herself as the victim, said she'd suffered a mysterious reaction at the anniversary party, claimed I'd always been deeply resentful of her role in the family, that I'd struggled emotionally since my mother's death. She didn't mention the prenup. She didn't mention the video evidence, or the fact that I had nearly passed out before the swap. No, she crafted a story for Sympathy 1 where she was the elegant matriarch under attack from a vindictive stepdaughter. And for a brief moment, it worked. The comment section lit up. Jealousy is a disease. Another spoiled rich kid craving attention. Why would she even be at the party if she hated them so much? I wasn't surprised. Sharon had money, friends, influence, a PR team probably. Me, I had a dead mother, a wrinkled envelope, and the truth. But I also had Elise. She called me that night. "You saw the article?" she asked. I did. "You ready to make a move?" I paused, then nodded into the phone. "Yeah, it's time." We met the next morning at a quiet downtown cafe, the kind where the sugar jars were chipped and the barista knew her name. Elise came prepared, flash drive, printed transcripts, and something I hadn't seen yet, security footage. One clip showed Sharon glancing over her shoulder, then dropping something small from her clutch into a champagne flute. Her movements were subtle but deliberate, practiced. Another angle captured from the server station showed her whispering to a man in a black vest. He nodded, picked up the tray. That same server gone before the police arrived. Part-time hire, fake name on file. This wasn't panic, this was premeditated. Elise looked me dead in the eye. She made her move. "Now make yours." I didn't hesitate. I sent the full package video timeline transcripts to a local independent journalist Elise trusted, someone who owed her a favor, someone who wouldn't twist it into clickbait. He posted it that night. No commentary, just facts. Within hours, Sharon Clark was trending again. But this time, the questions were different. Wait, is that a pill in her hand? Why did the server vanish? She looks so calm before she collapses. Y'all, this doesn't add up. My inbox exploded, and then my phone rang. My father. I let it ring 4 times. Then I picked up. He sounded tired, weathered, like a man clinging to a crumbling empire. Avery, he said quietly. We need to talk. I didn't say anything. I didn't know about the prenup, he continued. If I had, maybe things would have been different. No, I said cold and even. They wouldn't have. You let her erase me long before she ever tried to drug me. He exhaled. What do you want? I paused. Then I told him. I want the truth public. I want her out of my mother's house. And I want what was always mine. With interest. Long silence. Then come by tomorrow. We'll talk terms. I hung up, not because I needed his permission, but because for the first time I was the one at the head of the table, and they all knew it. The next morning, I stood in front of the estate, the same one Sharon had once remodeled top to bottom, like she was erasing a woman who still lived in every corner. But today, the power dynamic had shifted. I wore beige again. This time, not because I had to, but because I chose to. The dress hugged my frame with quiet precision, elegant and unapologetic. The same color Sharon once picked to dull me now became my battle flag. I walked through the heavy front doors without knocking. Sharon wasn't there, just my father sitting at the head of the long mahogany dining table. His hands were folded, knuckles pale, a legal folder, resting in front of him like a confession. He slid it toward me. You win. I opened it slowly. Inside was confirmation my mother's trust reinstated, my name restored, her assets redirected, her signature finally honored. She's gone, he said. I didn't look up. Where I don't know? She left last night. I met his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't look angry or disappointed. He looked small, like someone who finally realized the kingdom he'd let Sharon build was made of sand. I should have protected you, he whispered. But I didn't answer, because we both knew he didn't even try. Within a week, the house was legally mine again. The same house where Sharon used to strut like a queen, the one she redecorated in cold grays and glass chandeliers like my mother's memory, was an eyesore. I had it deep cleaned. I unpacked the old photo albums Sharon had boxed away and buried in a garage cabinet. I restored the garden, the one my mother once tended every morning with her coffee in hand, humming Earth, Wind, and Fire under her breath. I bought peonies. She loved peonies. That's when the knock came. Tyler. He looked rough. His perfect shell cracked. The public fallout had aged him years in a matter of days. The interview, the footage, the whispers, none of it could be undone now. I need to tell you something, he said. I folded my arms. Then say it. He looked down. I knew about the pill. My chest didn't rise, didn't fall, just still. She told me. Said it was just to, make you out of it. So you wouldn't cause drama. I didn't think she'd actually do it. You stayed silent, I said flatly. I was scared. Of her, I asked, or of losing your inheritance. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I closed the door. I didn't slam it, just closed it. Quietly, like sealing a vault. In the weeks that followed, Sharon's world unraveled fast. She was dropped from 2 nonprofit boards. Rumors circulated about an undisclosed incident involving inappropriate behavior at a private event. Business partners distanced themselves. A high-end wellness spa she co-owned pulled her name from the website entirely. She became a whisper, a cautionary tale in high society. And me, I didn't do interviews. I didn't tweet. I didn't post selfies with passive-aggressive captions like, "Karma looks good in beige." I let the truth work, Because sometimes revenge doesn't look like fire. Sometimes it's colder, quieter. It's a garden blooming where someone tried to salt the earth. It's your mother's signature framed and hung in the foyer. It's survival, visible, undeniable. Some endings don't come with fireworks or a last dramatic monologue. Some endings are just quiet, like the sound of your own breath after years of holding it in. That's what it felt like when I stood at the edge of the garden barefoot, coffee in hand, the morning sunlight warming the freshly turned soil. My mother's garden, restored. Peonies blooming in soft pinks and creams. The wind carried a hint of rosemary from the hedgerow. She would have smiled at that. Inside the house, the old family photos lined the hallway again, the ones Sharon had hidden away, claiming they didn't match the aesthetic. I'd found them boxed in the garage, covered in dust. One frame was cracked. I didn't fix it. Somehow the fracture made it more honest. Weeks had passed since the footage dropped. Sharon had disappeared from social circles. No interviews, no rebuttals. She didn't even post a denial, just vanished. Her name no longer appeared beside any of her luxury ventures. A few brave outlets ran headlines like, "Estate Scandal Did Sharon Clark." Tried to silence her stepdaughter Elise, and I kept in touch. She sent me a bouquet of white tulips with a card. For the girl who didn't flinch, I didn't need more than that. Some people enter your life just long enough to change its entire course and then step quietly back into the shadows. Tyler didn't come back. He didn't need to. The last thing I said to him stayed exactly where I wanted it between us, in that doorway like a locked drawer he'd never open without feeling the shame. My father. He tried. He asked me to dinner once, some upscale steakhouse in Buckhead. I declined, not out of anger but indifference. That hurt him more. When you grow up begging someone to see you and they never do, there's something cruelly liberating in finally not caring whether they do or not. And that's the power I found. Not revenge. Redefinition. Sharon tried to rewrite my role in the family, turn me into the forgettable footnote. Instead, I became the headline. The house was mine. My mother's legacy was protected. And I had earned something more valuable than any asset clarity. I used part of the reinstated trust to start something I called the Clark Initiative, not named for the family, but for the irony. It funds legal support for women navigating abusive inheritance battles. It's small now, but growing. And I get messages, hundreds of them, from daughters, from sisters, from women like me. I never respond with advice. Just 3 words, "I believe you," because that's where it started for me. One person. One warning. One impossible act of courage, Elise stopping me in that hallway, her eyes sharp, her voice steady, and I never forgot. Sometimes survival is the loudest revenge, and sometimes the beige dress they made you wear becomes your battle flag. So I keep it pressed clean in the back of my closet, just in case I ever need it again. Have you ever faced something like this? A betrayal that cut too deep a silence that felt like exile? Share your story in the comments. You're not invisible here. We read every single one. And if this story hits something in you, like subscribe and stay with us, because the truth, it always finds a way, even in beige.